Welcome to episode 7 of season 2 of FountainCast, a bi-weekly podcast brought to you by your Fountain Hills Chamber of Commerce, striving to be your one-stop fountain of information regarding your local business community here in Fountain Hills. I'm host Kristin Milashowski.
And I'm co-host Hannah Toth. Be sure to stay tuned after this episode as well to hear about upcoming chamber events.
In today's episode, we are speaking with 7-time author Dr. Sally Goldberg with Parenting with Dr. Sally. An author of Fun Baby Learning Games, Dr. Sally is here to share with us the 8 stages from birth to 3 years and how parents can navigate them. Dr. Sally, welcome to the show today. We're so excited to have you.
We're very happy to have you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Kristin, and thank you, Hannah. This is a delight. An opportunity to talk about something that I really love. So I'm being on my honor here to pinpoint exactly what's the most important for you to know and understand about what's happening today.
Wonderful, Dr. Sally. First, tell us a little bit more about what brought you to Fountain Hills.
Oh, that's a nice question. And this is one of the best places in the whole world.
That's true.
We agree.
Yes.
I agree. And so I'm delighted to be here and to be able to share the kind of work that I'm doing with the people in Fountain Hills. I lived many years in Florida, and I taught at different universities and did many different things in parenting and education, early childhood education. And believe it or not, it's a very simple answer. I was ready for a change. And so I also taught online at University of Phoenix, and that stuck out in my mind as the place to go. I gave it a try, and of course, it turned into an amazing opportunity.
Wonderful. Awesome. Opportunity abounds here in Arizona, that's for sure.
It's very
Absolutely.
true.
So back to the question, ages and stages, and I'm going to add to it areas of development. Ages and stages, believe it or not, starts at birth, and there are 8 of them. So between birth and 3, you have different things happening at different stages. And you can see these clearly from the table of contents in my newest book, which is the Fun Baby Learning Games. And so, looking at the table of contents that mentions the 8 stages in 3 parts, you see that there's 4 in the very first year, and then 2 in the second year and 2 in the third. So this tells us that very important things happen during that time.
They sure do, don't they?
They do. And most important to know is that most people think that this part of the baby's life is totally unimportant. And then just
so
wait.
Early.
It's so early. What could they possibly know? What could it possibly matter? But it turns out that the brain in the first year doubles in size.
Wow.
Now, what makes the brain tick? Why is that so important that it does that? So what I've done is prepared for the people that I teach and everyone else that I run across different handouts that explain the essence of what you would need to know without getting too much information. That's what I mentioned at first. You don't want too much information. You want to know what you need to know. So here is a handout. Best way to say it is just how I put it together. So starting at birth, the brain has nearly 100 billion neurons.
Wow.
That's
a lot.
That is a lot. But wait, the story gets better. More than 1 million neural connections are formed, get ready, every second.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's crazy to think about, isn't it?
Right. So that means all the experiences, all the input makes a difference. Yeah. So what you want to do is make it as positive as possible. And then there's information about how to do that. So the next sentence is just as interesting. So if they're formed in, that many are formed, 1 million, more than 1 million in every second. So in the first few years of life, it reaches about 100 trillion by age 3. So
by age 3, 100 trillion. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you want to be sure that you are making the best experience, because every connection, every neuron that's connected stays. And so the way it works with memory is if the experience is repeated, then there's a pathway. So it's very important that the repeated experiences or schedules are set and fixed and followed. So random things that happen, and even a random thing that might be upsetting, you don't worry about it, because it's just 1 in how many trillion.
Right. Yes.
But if it's the schedule and the important input, it's super important that it's consistent and that we stick to it.
That's why routines are so important for our little babies and toddlers as they
Right, and that's
grow.
why you start at birth. From the first year being most important, and even the first 3 months, that's the first stage, being the most important of all. Yeah. So that's what's so important, because with today's modern life, babies are often put aside. So you have all of these carriers and strollers, and it's so easy to just put your baby down and then do all the different things that we need to do, which we definitely need to do. But if you know this, you will be less likely to keep your baby down, more likely to do the hugging, holding, touching, talking, singing, reading, all those things, if you know they're important.
Right.
Yeah, that interaction is truly so important.
Right. Absolutely. And starting in that first year, that's something that's so important for parents to know, that birth to 1 year, that's 4 out of the 8 stages that you talk about in your book. So, of course, we're here to learn about fun baby learning games from your book. So I was wondering, would you let us play a fun baby learning game and walk us through what that does for a baby's brain?
Oh, that's a cute idea. Okay, well, let's start with the first one.
Okay.
So we're back now to the first 3 months and what would be a fun baby learning game. So this might surprise you, or maybe not, but do you know that little song, Rockabye Baby?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. So most people don't think about all that has to offer. And so pretend you have a baby, and in Rockabye Baby, the baby's head is right here, and the baby is being held. And so, believe it or not, that where the baby's head is, the eyes are in the exact right position to see the mother. And so this is eye contact, which is so important. Another really big basic word is connection. So that is a main thing that's happening in the first 3 months. So this is a game that makes the connection where the baby can actually see you. And even now, that if you know that, you concentrate on the connection as opposed to looking around or being on yourself. Oh, rockabye. Oh, this is such a fun little song. No, this is between you and the baby and the connection. So that's number 1, page 1 in the book. So you want to do that. And now that we have the baby in this wonderful position, which is so important for eye contact and connection.
Are you still holding your baby, Hannah?
I'm still holding
Okay, right. It's time to feed your baby. So I have to go back in time and say, well, the only way that really nature made a baby to be fed was by the mother and in this position. And you already know this position is very important for the contact. So when we increase the game here from the beauty of the song and the movement and everything, now you increase the power of the activity, believe it or not, to feeding. And when you're feeding the baby, even though the food is so important,
Right.
much, much more is important in that activity. It's connection, it's bonding and attachment. And bonding and attachment is major. So you have this opportunity, even though you think it's to feed the baby, it's not about that. So if you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, it doesn't matter. The same idea applies to be in this bonding and attaching position. So this is really critical, because as you look around to a lot of feeding today, most people don't know that. And so what are they doing? They're letting other people feed their baby, which is okay and helpful, but not the main idea. The main idea is to keep the connection of the activity, not focus on the feeding, that's secondary. Try to get the connection going, which is to the mother.
Okay. It's very interesting. And that they're learning eye contact from that early on is really interesting to me. I wouldn't think that eye contact is learned so early.
Right.
Yeah.
And so nature really helps us out all the time. A lot of things nature did just makes all these things happen. But modern times has done different things. And so we want to guard against some of those things from interfering.
Absolutely. So it's still so important to not forget those nurturing aspects, during those first critical months, that first critical year of a baby's life. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And so maybe something else you'd want to know, the first 3 months is a time of welcoming, because the baby is new here.
Right.
So you get very excited about welcoming people, anybody.
Of course.
So that is another game that this is all about, the welcoming to your baby. So in this way, you can put your baby down. You're not going away, and you're continuing to touch all the time as much as you can, but you're helping the baby unfold into the world. The baby was all crunched up for a while, and now it's time to help the baby adjust to what's to come. So you take the hands and you do open, shut them. Open, shut them. It helps the unfolding. And there's other songs for the fingers, and you get them to open, unfold. And so again, it's not just the physical contact of doing something like that, but the welcoming and the happiness and the joy that they need to hear in terms of developing self-esteem and feeling good about themselves right from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. Sally, what would you say of all of your research over the years, the books you've written, what's your number one, if you could tell parents just one thing that just are welcoming their first child into their life, what would be your one thing you would want people to take away?
Absolutely. And this is going to sound kind of silly in a way, but the word is love.
Absolutely.
The big difference between the mother and anybody else who does take care of your baby is that the mother loves that baby. They have that. And so they need to recognize that and build on it and enjoy it. So we mentioned that I have different handouts that explain many things about the early years. But this very one that we started with that explains the neural connections in the brain, so that's very technical. So we go on to the next thing, which answers your question. What is a parent to do? Here it is. Provide an optimal environment at all times. So your baby is 24/7. None of this stops.
Right.
So you want to be on guard that you're doing your best all the time and not taking that blanket and covering their face because you want to protect them from everything. No, you want to open the world, explain things, talk as much as you can, and so on. So that's an optimal environment, but here we go. It begins with love, and then everything else flows from there. So it says talk, and talk some more as you hug, touch, and play. All children thrive on love because it is open, honest, and most of all, fun.
This is true.
So wonderful.
Yes.
And what a beautiful sentiment to give to parents, that it starts with love and everything else flows from there.
that.
I think that is so beautiful.
And it's so true.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. So I think you've touched on it a little bit, but let's talk results a little bit. What adults can we expect from babies that played your baby learning games?
Right. A lot of people focus on the results, and you think about milestones of development and what you expect at each age and stage.
Right.
And so I've presented it in another way, which is not what you're looking for so much in the baby, but what you're actually looking for that you can do at each age and stage. So
Milestones for parents, but
so
not for
they
baby.
can look at
Okay.
those things, but that's not what's going to make cause that development. So
Right.
we say we promote development. We don't teach it because it's going to happen all the time. It's development, but you want to do your best to set up the best environment to promote it. So for each age and stage, like birth to 3 months, you have 6 recommendations for how to spend your time. So from the very beginning, you would say, unfold and welcome. Set up patterns of regularity. Love. Pay attention. Respect. Show joy and happiness. And most of all, be yourself. So the idea isn't you're not really following a rule book. You're really following your own rule book with a little bit of guidance about what you can do. So you can see pictures of each age and stage, and then you can have guidance about what you can do. So we finish birth to 3 months, and then we're going to change it a little bit, change it up for 3 to 6 months, and you can see it's much more interactive and reactive. And while before you were just waiting for things to happen, now you can bring in more language and get more attention and have more interaction, and it gets more exciting. And then look at this, just 6 to 9 months, 3 months later, sitting up, more opportunities to use their hands. It goes all naturally.
Absolutely.
But I'd love to have, it's nice to have the little guidance about what to do. Foster engagement more with other people. Start clapping hands and giving objects for manipulating. So you get a little extra help, but that's the focus, more on what you can do.
And a nice guide for parents.
On, what's going on.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Sally, you have provided so much information to us today. And for new parents, tell us how, if you're a new parent or, maybe you had a baby for a few months, but you feel like you need some help, how can our listeners get in touch with you? Where can they find you at?
Well, that is so sweet. Okay, well, I have a website, and it has a lot of information on it and always new ideas. There's a section called News. There's a section for guests. And then my favorite one is Q&A. So I really highly recommend going to the website, and I promise to answer every question. I can do it privately if that's a request, and I can do it on the website if that's a request.
Wonderful.
And then the other thing is I'm doing ongoing classes at the Fountain Hills Community Center.
That's great.
Fantastic.
So parents can know that they can always get a personalized class because they're listed in this program each I don't know how they do it, quarterly with a change. And all you have to do is look up parenting and contact the center, sign up for a class, and you can be guaranteed that it's going to be personalized for what you're doing. It's not like a rigid program that you have to take that course. It isn't like that. It's guided by these kinds of very specific, very general areas that I want the parents to know.
Wonderful, Dr. Sally. Thank you so much for all of the information today. It's what a pleasure to have you on FountainCast today.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope I'm making a difference in being helpful in Fountain Hills.
You truly are. I know it.
Absolutely.
That's terrific.
Thank you. That will wrap up episode 7 of season 2 of FountainCast. And once again, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. with Dr. Sally Goldberg. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Sally, and teaching us a little bit about what you can do as a parent to help guide your child through development milestones. That first year is so critical. Listeners, don't forget to share our show with your friends, neighbors, and your clients, and anyone else in your network who will be interested. Please like, rate, and review our show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes. For upcoming chamber news, be sure to mark your calendars for the January 19th ribbon cutting with Silver Tree Wealth Partners Dawn Prescott, and join us earlier that same morning at 7:30 a.m. for the FH Connect Breakfast, welcoming speaker Tom Lindsay for Inspiring in the New Year, the Power of Communication. Don't forget to also join us for the Chamber Lunch Mob on January 27th at 11:30 a.m., where we will be starting at Manny's on the Avenue of the Fountains. We also have a Brew with Betsy to help you make the most of your chamber member benefits on January 31st at noon here at the Chamber. Be sure to check the Chamber website for more details on all of our upcoming events, or to request to do your own podcast, Uniquely Fountain Hills episode, send us additions to the newsletter, and so much more. Thank you, Fountain Hills, for continuing to be the best community. Yay! Got it.
So for that, it's not just focusing on hers. It was on all three of us?
So it records
So
on
all
us.
three of us are in the frame for the
When
full-
you're talking.
Yes.
'Cause I don't even know when I put my glasses on or took them
It was
off.
fine. I noticed when you did, and it was perfect.
Oh,
So it
completely
was,
okay.
yeah,
Completely
it was
okay.
Because
perfect.
I thought we weren't on at
Yeah.